What you are seeing right now should not be here. Imagine a tourist city, once promised as the next Palm Springs, now in ruins, transformed into a toxic desert, filled with strange and forgotten secrets. Under the pitiless California sun, in a place where the smell of decomposition is the only constant, the desert is returning secrets that the United States government tried to bury more than 8 decades ago. A story that involves the Manhattan Project, ghost naval bases, and the tests that decided the fate of humanity during World War II. You're entering the Sandy Beach Exclusion Zone, a basin of toxic salt and dead fish. Prepare yourself to dive deep into the Salton Sea and uncover a disturbing truth. I am Kaio, and this is Eerie Horizons. There was a time when this place had another name. They called it the California Riviera. In the 1950s and 60s, the shores of the Salton Sea attracted more tourists than Yosemite National Park itself. Crowded hotels, nightclubs, yachts cutting through the water under the desert sunset. Frank Sinatra was here, Jerry Lewis, the Beach Boys. While the public toasted, danced, and pretended the desert was just an exotic backdrop, something very different was happening just a few miles away. Because while families were swimming in these waters, the United States military was operating in the shadows. In Sandy Beach, there was a naval base that, officially, should never have been there. The Salton Sea Naval Test Base was no ordinary outpost. It was a field laboratory, and specifically, the laboratory for the 509th Composite Group. This was the same group responsible for the only nuclear bombs ever used against civilian populations. Here, B-29 Superfortress bombers crossed the sky in strange patterns. They weren't carrying tourists or supplies. They were carrying prototypes, artifacts that never appeared on any public transport manifests. To understand what was happening here, we need to talk about a name that rarely appears in history books: Project Silverplate. This was the ultra-secret code name for the extensive modification of the B-29 bombers. They had to become capable of carrying something that had never been carried before. But why here? Why the Salton Sea? The answer doesn't lie in mystical conspiracies. It lies in engineering. The Salton Sea Basin is more than 200 feet below sea level. This creates a specific air density, a predictable environment, controllable. Here, scientists could measure with absolute precision the aerodynamic behavior of atomic bomb casings. Nothing was built just to observe. Everything was built to survive something. The concrete ramps had calculated angles. The bunkers had walls nearly 3 feet thick. This isn't protection against mistakes, it's protection against impact. Here, pilots practiced the so-called breakaway maneuver, a sharp 155-degree turn, executed seconds after releasing the bomb. It was their only chance of survival. Many of the prototypes used here were the so-called pumpkin bombs. They weren't nuclear, but they were far from harmless. They carried tons of conventional explosives. They needed to behave like something that couldn't explode, but needed to be real. Accidents happened. Dry explosions echoed through the desert. Windows rattled in nearby villages. Residents saw dead fish washing ashore without explanation. They didn't know, but they were witnessing the dress rehearsals for Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The end of World War II didn't bring silence to Sandy Beach. It brought isolation. With the start of the Cold War, the base wasn't decommissioned. It was sealed. Reinforced steel doors, tunnels descending several levels below ground, equipment that was never officially listed. There are partially declassified documents, entire pages redacted, but the dates remain. And those dates coincide with nuclear tests in the Pacific. There is a persistent theory among investigators that the environmental disaster of the Salton Sea was not just negligence. It was a solution. By allowing the water to rise, flooding structures and tunnels with a toxic and corrosive brine, a natural barrier was created. No one dives here. No one explores tunnels that melt metal in months. The lake became the perfect tomb. Unlike the Salton Sea, where no one can fully explore it, we are here to always explore dark and remote places like this. Don't miss it. But why hide so much? Why not turn to a historical museum like so many other World War II sites? The answer may lie in declassified documents that few dare to read. Reports from the 1940s suggest that the Salton Sea was not just a dumping ground, but a laboratory debris recovery. What exactly were they recovering? Some researchers point to flaws in the prototypes that resulted in partial detonations, scattering components that the government would prefer the world to forget. Look at these structures. They weren't built to last 10 or 20 years. They were built for eternity. 1950s and celebrities like Frank Sinatra came here. The military simply left the scene, leaving behind an underground infrastructure that has not yet been fully mapped. The government claimed the base was closed because it was redundant. But the speed with which the evidence was covered by rising waters raises a disturbing question. Was the Salton Sea environmental disaster a tragic accident or a perfect smokescreen to seal Sandy Beach forever? Today, the Salton Sea is a ghost town. The smell of sulfur and dead fish keeps the curious away, but attracts those seeking the truth behind the American facade. What we have seen here today is just the tip of the iceberg. Sandy Beach is an invisible scar on the history of humanity. It is the place where the modern world in considering the basis of leadership, with all its destructive power, was first tested far from the eyes of the world. As the waters continue to recede, new concrete skeletons will emerge. Do you think there is even more hidden beneath the rubble of that base? Or will the government try to keep it under wraps? I think this is only the beginning of major military discoveries. The secrets and mysteries of the Salton Sea are revelations that make us reflect and often understand what lies behind what is visible. That's why I recommend the video of Mount Kailash. Click here to find out why climbing this mountain in China is strictly prohibited. It has nothing to do with deaths, dangers, or adventures. You will be surprised. Don't get lost, because soon we will have another place in the world with dark secrets that no one can imagine. See you at the next Eerie Horizons.